All right, Wilson, let's get the day started. 6:28 downtown Billings. Days continue to get shorter. It's about 49 out there this morning as we look at First News. It's fair, it's accurate. You get the damn truth. Police say more than 90 people were killed and 50 others injured with a big explosion of a gasoline tanker when it overturned in Nigeria. It sparked the explosion. Dozens of people rushed to the vehicles to scoop up fuel in Nigeria when that happened, and with no concern about the people. It lost control while traveling on a highway close to a university. Residents were scooping up the fuel, though, from that tanker when that explosion occurred, trying to get the free fuel from that tanker truck. Israel killed 15 more in Lebanon today as they continue their quest to wipe out the terrorists of Hezbollah and Hamas. Israel struck Beirut's southern suburbs for the first time in more than a week as the shelling continues. Everybody's still wondering what might happen with Iran since a few weeks ago they decided to shoot missiles into Tel Aviv. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky will unveil a new blueprint for his country's war against Russia. The plan will be presented to Parliament Wednesday, is considered by many Ukraine's last resort to try to strengthen its hand in any future ceasefire negotiations with Russia. Zelensky's willing to advance the plan. Thus far, none of the Western allies have publicly endorsed it, as the Biden-Harris administration want to just continue to pound Russia and spend billions upon billions of dollars into that Ukrainian military and try to set Putin back. Tens of thousands of students in the southeast still are dealing with school disruptions after Hurricane Helene. Homes, campuses, power, water systems, they have no idea when those are going to open. Virtual learning helped during COVID. They believe it could help during this crisis down there, but still cell phone, internet service is still spotty, especially in North Carolina, where FEMA really dropped the ball in getting those people back on their feet again. However, down in Florida, things are much better. Governor Ron DeSantis had everything in place ready to go. They've almost have power restored to all of the 3.5 million people that lost it within about a week in Florida. As we get closer to the election, there's going to be more and more surprises in October that we have to deal with. All kinds of things to change rules. A judge blocked a new rule in Georgia that said their ballots had to be counted by hand. The ruling came a day after the judge ruled county election officials have to certify their election results by the deadline that was set in the law. He blocked enforcement, though, of the hand count rule. The rulings are victories for Democrats, who wanted to make sure that the voting in Georgia didn't have to be counted by hand. They wanted to be able to use machines to count the votes down in Georgia. Now, why would they say that's a victory for Democrats? Why? That's one question. Liberal voting rights groups have raised concerns about certifying the election results down in Georgia. It's seen as one of the swing states in this election. Lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs, they want a judge in New York to force the prosecutors to disclose all of the names of his accusers in the sex trafficking case. Lawyers said in a filing yesterday that he has to know the identities of his victims in order to prepare for the trial. A May 5th trial date has been set for Combs. Still remains incarcerated, no bail. His lawyers are appealing that order too, hoping to get him freed to at least home detention. Judges have concluded that that man is a danger to the community and they will not let him out. The Biden-Harris administration continue to break America at a record pace. Democrats who have signed on to all these spending bills have broke us to the point we'll never recover. The Small Business Administration announced yesterday they ran out of money, have no money available for any disaster loan, and that will delay much of the relief for people in the wake of the hurricanes. Yeah, they're out of money. Their economic disaster loan part of the business is broke. Congress could approve more funding. They'd have to borrow all of that money. The SBA is pausing new loan offers until they get more funding now. Isabel Casillas Guzman said people should still keep applying for the loans. They've received 37,000 applications since the hurricane, totaling about $50 million. They don't have it. And the man who runs FEMA, the Secret Service, and is in charge of our border, he still keeps his job. The United States is fining a German airline, Lufthansa, $4 million because of their treatment of Jewish passengers who were denied boarding on a flight in Frankfurt. The Transportation Department said most of the 128 passengers who were denied boarding wore distinctive clothing typically worn by Orthodox Jewish men. The fine is the largest in the agency's history for a civil rights violation. Lufthansa has given credit for $2 million for compensation they gave to those passengers. The airline's disputing that any employee acted on bias, but the company said, we acknowledge there were errors in communications, and so they will have to take care of those lawsuits. We told you that dozens of losers were rallying outside Kellogg's because they don't like Fruit Loops. Said there are artificial dyes in them that can hurt children. The company has disputed that. Everything that Kellogg's uses has all been FDA approved. They want Kellogg's to do what they do in Canada. They want them to use carrot juice, watermelon juice, blueberry juice instead of the dyes. They've also been protesting Kraft Heinz that take dyes out of their ketchup or macaroni and cheese. The FDA has reviewed all of the additives and said there are no adverse effects to any children when they consume them. We mentioned yesterday Walgreens is going to close 1,200 drugstores in America. Drugstores that once snapped up all the prime retail spots in the country are now in retreat. One thing that brought that on, shrinking prescription prices, persistent theft. You know, you can go into a Walgreens, take $900 worth of stuff in California, leave, and they don't go after you. You're allowed to shoplift $900 worth now in California. Theft ruining them. Consumers who have strayed to online retailers and competitors that have better prices, they didn't have to pay for the real estate. This comes as rival CVS Health. They're wrapping up a 3-year plan. They're closing 900 stores, and Rite Aid is emerging from bankruptcy. They've whittled their stores down to only 1,300 left now in the United States. Walgreens has 8,500 stores in the United States, but caught up to them. Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump appealing to middle-class workers. Their messages could have a big impact. Strong union states, Michigan and others. Harris is relying on the United Auto Workers president to try to spread her message. She's not getting it. 2 unions that backed Joe Biden in 2020, that backed Biden and Harris, aren't backing them this year. And Donald Trump's jumped on those endorsements and claims that rank-and-file workers now support his vision for America and not the Biden-Harris regime. The first widening of the gender wage in 20 years. Latest indication that many women are paying the price for leaving the workforce during COVID-19. They lost their jobs. Finding in a recent Census Bureau report captures that moment for women now that we are in a post-pandemic recovery. Wages are growing for all workers, but they're growing faster for men. And the widening of the wage gap is due in large because the surge in Latino women that are now joining the workforces and bringing the wages down. Folks, those 10 to 20 million that came across the border, a lot of them have to find jobs. And they're taking jobs and doing it at a cheaper rate, and it's hurting the American women's workforce. Some of the lowest paid healthcare workers in California, they're getting a pay bump. Another law there, supermajority. They just pass this stuff right and left. Workers paid will go to $25 an hour. Workers will begin getting paid that rate immediately. Critics said the law could pose a financial burden on healthcare providers. They don't care. Gavin Newsom and lawmakers agreed it. But they said we have to try to figure out now how to balance our budget. Many hospitals have already started to boost worker pay anyway to try to retain their workers. You may recall that they did the same thing in California for fast food workers. They bumped it $20. That's where you start. $20 an hour, hurting their businesses, closing fast food restaurants now in California. There's an increasing shift towards electric vehicles globally, but mostly in China. It's poised to disrupt the global oil market. According to a new report, China has accounted for the most growth in oil demand and planet heating emissions. But electric vehicles now make up 40% of the new sales in cars in China, 20% globally. The World Energy Outlook released future predictions, and they said the electric vehicle market will continue to gain momentum, could reach 50% of all of the global car sales by 2030. Most of these, though, are in China. Yesterday on Wall Street, U.S. stocks pulled back. Crude oil tumbled again yesterday. S&P 500 fell almost a full point. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 324. NASDAQ was also down. Exxon lost 3% because oil prices sank. They are below $75 a barrel now. NVIDIA was the big heavyweight. It fell 4.5%. That chip company, their stock is still up 166% from the year, but it fell dramatically yesterday. Montana Republican governor will face his Democratic challenger in a debate tonight. Greg Gianforte said he wouldn't debate Ryan Busse because Busse never released his tax returns. Well, he finally did. As the governor had released his, Busse finally released 10 years worth of he and his wife's tax records, and so they will have a debate tonight. Problem is, the ballots have already been out. Loads of people have already voted anyway, and this debate that will be on ABC/Fox Montana probably will not change anybody's mind for the election. And the world's second sphere is going to be built in the capital of the United Arab Emirates after they opened up the first one in Las Vegas. Abu Dhabi's culture department and the Sphere owner announced the plan Tuesday. The announcement offered no financing information in the capital. Officials with the Sphere and Abu Dhabi did not answer any questions. Now, the one in Las Vegas opened up in 2023 as the gambling capital's most expensive entertainment venue in Las Vegas. Abu Dhabi's been trying to differentiate itself as a travel destination too, different from that of neighboring Dubai. And so they are preparing to open up their first big casino there with the Sphere. Now, the one in Las Vegas that opened last year, that cost $2.3 billion to build that. It's the gambling capital's most expensive entertainment venue with high-resolution LED screens wrapped halfway around the Sphere. They've hosted concerts, sporting events in that structure that stands 366 feet tall and 516 feet wide. However, efforts to build a second one have been choppy, but they have the money over there. So there's only one here in the United States, but that's in Vegas. They don't have one in New York. They don't have one in Dallas. They don't have one in Atlantic City, but the folks in Abu Dhabi do.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
All right.
You gave that some thought, some delivery.
Thank you, Mark.
That was good.
Finally, I got it right. Cat Country News Time is 6:44.